Williamson County Budget Committee meeting together for July 6, 2020. And before we call the roll, just a reminder, this is an electronic meeting. This meeting is being held in pursuant to Executive Order 16 and 34, superseded by Executive Order 51 of the Governor of the State of Tennessee. As such, all members of the committee must be able to hear me and each other. If you cannot hear the other committee members, please notify me immediately, and we will try to get that fixed. All votes will be either done by roll call or unanimous consent, and I'll let you know those are available for unanimous consent. This meeting is available to the public on Public Access TV and is streaming live on YouTube. I'll now call the roll. Commissioner Herbert.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Present.
Commissioner Sturgeon.
Commissioner Sturgeon here.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson. Mayor Anderson. Okay, I know he's around. We'll come back to him, and this Chair Paul Webb's present. A note, the minutes of the March, April, May, and June meeting, we were assuming we were going to meet in person today, and so we're not. So I've asked those to be deferred till September. Hopefully we'll be live again, and we will review the minutes at that meeting. If we're still in this virtual state, we will review the minutes at that point virtually. One other note, if you have the agenda, we do have a transfer. I want to make sure everyone received that transfer. And note that on the resolutions, we may, and underline this, please note this on your list, we may use unanimous consent for resolutions 720-1, 2, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, and 29. Note that the member making the motion must include that the motion is by unanimous consent. If any committee member disagrees with that, then we will have a roll call vote for that resolution. Okay, we'll try Mayor Anderson. Are you on the line now?
Mayor Anderson's present, sorry.
Okay, that's good. We've got everybody present. First up is the resolution. You received this late this afternoon. This is a resolution from the Budget Director, Nina Graham. What we'll do is we will put this on the floor and then ask Nina to go through this. Most of these items we have already approved. So the resolution is transferred within the Capital Projects Fund for 2021. Capital requests will be funded with remaining balances from prior year's projects. You have that in front of you. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move for approval, Herbert.
Thank you. Second?
Morton, second.
And Diane, correct me, this is a transfer, not a resolution. Sorry about that. Nina, can you go over this for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Also on your attachment, you received a listing of the 2021 county capital projects requests that were approved during the budget process. The transfer before you is a listing of the projects that were approved to use current available funds to pay for these projects. So we've gone over these projects. They've been approved. This is just our accounting paperwork to get it set up to move forward with it. So under the Sheriff's Department, you have various line items that total up to $645,000 to be set up in account code. And the project for jail building improvements, the water system, for a total of $645,000. Chair, would you like me to read each of these and then vote at the end, or?
That's what I would prefer, if Jeff is okay with that.
I am. That should be sufficient.
Okay.
Okay. The second request is a transfer from jail locking system of $95,000 to food service equipment for $95,000. The next requests are transfers from Detention Foundation and the jail locking system, a total of $122,000. to account code for the sheriff's department for various field apparatus of $122,000. The next section are projects that were approved for the Ag Park. $33,000 from Ag Expo Concrete Arena to Ag Expo Equipment and Vehicles for $33,300. $110,000 transfer from Ag Expo Concrete Arena to Ag Expo Equipment and Vehicle. And the next request, there was remaining funds in the Ag Expo enhancements of 2016B to help make up the total of the $5,000. So we'll see that same account code come across for total of $5,000 for Ag Expo enhancements. Also, the library network infrastructure of $30,000, and that can remain in the same account code. We don't need to set up a new account code for that one.
Okay, thank you, Nina. So that last one there will remain in that same account. We're just using current year dollars for capital projects. All right, does anyone on the committee have a question?
This is Judy Herbert. I do.
Go ahead, Commissioner Herbert.
I have a question on the sheriff's budget. All this money left over, were all those projects completed and that was what was left over, or some of those projects not completed?
Those were completed projects, and those usually come in under bid. That's why there's remaining funds in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, anyone else have any other questions for Nina? Okay, this transfers before you is, I'll hold this for me because this is a lot of information. Want to make sure everyone understands. Well, we've got Nina here for this transfer. Any other questions? If not, are you ready to vote? All those in favor of this budget transfer will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Yes. Herbert.
Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. That transfer passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to our resolutions. First one up is Resolution 720-1, resolution accepting roads and farms at Clovercroft. Section 1 is a part of the county road system for maintenance by the county highway department located off Clovercroft Road. Do I have a motion, please?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. This looks pretty straightforward. Does anyone have any questions or do we need an explanation? All right. This was, we could have done this unanimous consent. That's my fault for not flagging you. We didn't do that, but we'll do a roll call on this one. All those in favor of 720-1 signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. Thank you very much. Resolution 7-20-2. This may be by unanimous consent. Resolution accepting roads in Hart's landmark subdivision as part of the county road system for maintenance by the county highway department located off Heartland Road. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve by unanimous consent, Herbert.
Thank you. Second?
Morton, second.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or need an explanation on this resolution? And I'll have to get the counselor to tell me, remind me if I do this right, counselor. So all those in favor of 720-2, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? That one passes unanimously. Next one up, and this is the large one, and we've got Nina here with us for this. This is Resolution 7-20-3. A resolution making appropriation of various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Williamson County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Morton second.
Thank you very much. Nina, do you want to go over this?
Do you need me to read off each major category or just the total of each fund?
I think we've been reading off the category. Again, I'll defer to Mr. Mosley to get the correct answer.
Okay, sorry, I was having trouble with my mute button.
Okay.
Yeah, traditionally, I think we've done major categories, and you can do that by voice vote. You will have to do a roll call on the overall budget and the individual funds.
Thank you, Jeff. So Nina, if you can run down that and then answer questions as we go, and then we'll do a unanimous consent type vote under each category, such as general administration, that 16 million item.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman,
Nina. Somebody asking a question?
yes, sir, it's Diane. Jeff,
Yes.
do we need to take votes on the individual categories, or can we not just vote on the resolution as a whole?
We can, but we have traditionally done major categories when we're in the major, when we're just in the auditorium and we vote on the major categories. It is not required by statute, so I was going more by tradition than I was by the legality of it. You could vote on the budget as a whole. That is true. If you want to vote on the major categories, you can do that by voice, and it will not implicate.
Right, I know we do at the full commission meeting. I was just thinking for the budget committee purposes. I didn't think we typically did it at budget level for the.
I've seen it both ways over the years, Diane, and I can't tell you honestly what we did last year.
I was
So
just trying to speed things up for them.
if the committee wants to do it that way, they can certainly do that, though.
Before we have Nina come on, then the committee members, would you weigh in and tell me what is your preference?
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yes.
this is Anderson. I'm comfortable whatever you want to do, Mr. Chairman, but every single one of these items are what we have seen throughout the budget process. As you voted on them on those individual days, every single one of them matches up, and that was what Nina's charge are, and it's also been advertised. But whatever you want to do, if you're trying to get through tonight, then you could do like you just speed it up a little bit, but that's up to you.
And I agree with you, Mayor Anderson. So with the other commissioners, if you don't have an objection, we'll have Nina give a quick summary because we have seen all of this, and then we will do a roll call vote for the total budget at the end and let you ask questions. Is that agreeable? If not, let me know. Okay, Nina, that appears to be agreeable. Will you kind of run through the high points since we've seen this before?
Is my mic on?
Yes.
So these are just the individual departments that we voted on throughout the year within the general fund. So the total general fund is $109,944,915. The solid waste sanitation fund is $6,742,391. The special drug fund is $166,750. The highway public works fund is $13,100,327. General purpose school fund, $395,925,769. Central cafeteria, $14,557,636. Extended school program, $7,153,988. General debt service fund, $47,940,100. Rural debt service fund, $33,940,000 for a total of $629,471,876.
Thank you, Nina. Does anyone on the committee have a question? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 7-20-3 to approve the budget of $629,471,876 will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert.
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 7-20-3 passes unanimously. Next one up is 7-20-4, resolution fixing the tax levy in Williamson County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Morton, second.
Second. Thank you very much. You'll see that we are not changing the tax rate to 222. I don't think we need Nina to explain that, but if you have any questions, let us know. Hearing none, ready to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Resolution 7-20-4. Commissioner Herbert.
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Passes unanimously. Next one up is resolution 7-20-5, resolution making appropriations to nonprofit charitable organizations, Williamson County, Tennessee, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this line item? We've, again, gone through this one before. Hearing none, all those ready to vote, we'll vote on resolution 7-20-5, signify by saying aye if you are in favor of resolution 7-20-5. Commissioner Herbert.
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb. Aye. That passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 7-20-6. Resolution making appropriations to nonprofit emergency service organizations of Williamson County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you very much. Again, we've done this before. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote on 7-20-6? If so, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert.
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 7-20-7. Resolution appropriating $4,900,000 adequate school facilities privilege tax funds and approving the related operating transfers for the 2020-2021 general debt service expenditures. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. You see this before you. I think we've seen this before. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah,
Hearing none? Yes.
Chairman. Yeah, I just
Yes.
wanted to know, is this 4.9 designated for a bunch of different projects or is this one project?
It looks like debt, but I'll let Nina answer that for sure. Nina?
Oh,
It goes towards paying principal on general debt service for school projects. So it is multiple bond issues.
okay, thank you, Nina.
Anyone else have a question on 7-20-7? If not, ready to vote. All those in favor of 7-20-7 will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. Pass unanimously. Next up is resolution 7-20-8, resolution appropriating $7,700,000 education privilege tax and adequate school facilities privilege tax funds and approving the related operating transfers for 2020-2021 rural debt service expenditures. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Very similar to the last one. Seeing none, ready to vote? Resolution 720-8. If you're in favor, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-8 passes unanimously. Next up is Resolution 720-9, resolution of the governing body of Williamson County, Tennessee, authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of interest-bearing 2020-2021 general purpose school fund tax anticipation notes not to exceed $23,500,000. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Tina, do you want a quick summary on this one?
This is for a tax anticipation note for the schools. It's just operating cash flow until our taxes start coming in at the end of the year.
All right, and we do this every year usually, right?
Right.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right. Ready to vote on 720-9. If you're in favor, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-9 passes unanimously. Next one up is Resolution 720-10, a resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 County General Fund budget by $432,813, revenues to come from County General Fund balance. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions about this one? No questions? Ready to vote on 720-10. If you're in favor of 720-10, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-10 passes unanimously. Next up is Resolution 720-11, resolution amending the 2020-2021 capital projects budget and appropriating up to $1,900,000 for capital improvement costs, revenues to come from unappropriated highway fund balance. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. This one looks pretty self-explanatory with the projects listed. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote for 720-11, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon? Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-11 passes unanimously. Next one up is Resolution 720-12, resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 capital project fund by project budget by $920,000, revenue to come from unappropriated solid waste sanitation fund balance. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Again, look, we have seen this before. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we ready to vote on 720-12? If so, signify aye if you're in favor. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-12 passes unanimously. Next one up is Resolution 720-13, resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 capital projects budget by $430,000 for the purchase of fire equipment for the Williamson County Volunteer Fire Service. Revenues to come from fire protection privilege tax funds. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Any questions on this line item? Again, this is another privilege tax for fire equipment.
Can I ask?
Seeing
I
none,
just-
ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to
Go ahead.
know, I don't know what OPS means. I probably should, but I don't. And I was curious what fire station is getting these equipment.
OPS, Office of Public Safety, and we'll see either Nina or Bill Jorgensen or Mayor Anderson can probably answer where this equipment is going. Who wants to answer?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Jorgensen. I can, the fire training trailer, that's for all stations. That'll is a mobile unit that can provide training around to different facilities. Voice pagers are for all stations. The wildland fire medical support units, we've got a few of those now, and they will be strategically positioned around the county at different stations. I don't remember where the compressor is going. I think it might be going, it's going to one of the stations that doesn't have a self-contained breathing apparatus compressor. Not sure which one that is. The response vehicle, both of those would be for fire captains or emergency management staff that may be responding to fire calls.
And then that last one, Bill, that fire equipment, fleet management, is that also a vehicle? At
Yes,
47
that's
to
a
11?
replacement. So all the equipment, the top one is a new vehicle with all the equipment, and then the bottom one is a replacement where all the equipment goes from another vehicle into that one. So that's why it's cheaper.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Sturgeon?
No, thank you, Bill. That's
Okay.
what I was looking for.
Any other questions? Ready to vote on 720-13? If you're in favor of resolution 720-13, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-13 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-14, a resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 capital projects budget by $380,000 for the purchase of various parks and recreation equipment. Revenues to come from recreation privilege tax funds. So I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions on this privilege tax for parks and recreation? Seeing none, ready to vote on 720-14? If so, signify by saying aye if you're in favor of resolution 720-14. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. That passed unanimously. We've had others join the call. Just want to remind you, if you're not speaking, would you please mute? That'll help eliminate some of the feedback that we're getting. Thank you. We'll wait on you if you want to speak. Thank you. Next up is resolution 720-15. Resolution of the intent to fund certain county general projects totaling $27,135,000 in a 2020-21 bond or note issue. I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. We may have some questions of Nina on this one. Does anyone have any questions that they want to address Nina on? Don't have any questions? Ready to vote on this one?
Is
Yes,
this-
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, did we approve all these projects earlier and I missed it? Or is this where we're approving them?
No, ma'am, you all
yes,
did
ma'am.
approve these throughout the budget process, and this is just the funding mechanism.
Okay. I didn't remember seeing anything on a new Parks and Rec facility for Bethesda. At what meeting did we approve that at?
That's been a long going project. Nina, you have seems like that might have been a year and a half ago.
No, it was approved during this budget process, but I
Okay.
have the date in front of me that we went over all the capital requests.
I actually think I missed that meeting.
That particular one has been a long-term project. I guess I thought it was a year and a half because of the library and the sports project going out there at Bethesda.
Do we do like a population study to say, okay, the population's grown to a certain point, now we probably should put a facility out there? I mean, what was the criteria for putting one in that specific location?
Mayor Anderson, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, let me answer that. So over the years, the course of many years, we have built recreation facilities all for the most part in our cities. That's not true. We do have them in the county too. Bethesda serves not only Bethesda community. As you turn off from Lewisburg Pike and Bethesda Road is down there about a mile on the left. It's where we bought some land a couple of years ago, and then we have had looked at this site for a regional site for our Parks and Rec because they do not have any ball fields out there, any soccer fields. Now you have to go all the way into Bethesda, and it's at its capacity. But this one is being improved. It is one on the list. It's probably the highest priority I've got for Parks and Recreation to get something out in that community that addresses the needs because of the growth of that community. It has a little Page, has a little Thompson Station, but we label it Bethesda, and we'll relocate some of the facilities from the old Bethesda, because they really don't have much except the ball field. The current facility is at the Bethesda Elementary, if you want to go out there and look at it. There's other things going on there, but it'll be a multi-year project. But we're starting out of the gate by putting the soccer fields there, and we're also trying to look at some other things that we can get there. There's some more land available, but it all costs money. But this is the next place we ought to have a Parks and Recreation. So it's based on population a little bit, Commissioner, but it's also because it's kind of like you said one time for the grassland. When is your time for the auditorium? Well, when's our time for the Parks and Recreation?
Thank you for the explanation, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions on 720-15?
This is Commissioner Herbert. I just wanted to let Commissioner Sturgeon know, this is actually replacing an old rec center that was in an old school that the roof leaks and there's multiple repairs that are costing so much. And they're going to move the library, the roofs leak on the computers. So it's been a big problem for years. And actually it just serves Bethesda now, but the new one will serve more of Thompson Station because Bethesda doesn't have soccer. I mean, Spring Hill and Thompson Station also. But it's a new facility for Bethesda. You should drive out there. It's gorgeous country and see what they're going to be building out there.
Thank you. Any other questions on 720-15? Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of resolution 720-15 will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-15 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-16, resolution requesting an intent to fund $9,936,647 for the Williamson County Board of Education 2020-2021 capital needs. So I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? We've looked at this one earlier as well. Any questions of Nina or the school folks are online as well? All right, seeing none, are you ready to vote on 720-16? If you're in favor of resolution 720-16, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-16 passes unanimously. Next one up is resolution 720-17, a resolution approving lease purchase agreements for Apple imac computers for TV and film classes. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
All right, do we have any questions on 720-17?
This is Herbert. I'd like to ask Superintendent Golden more.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Herbert. Mr. Golden is online.
I know the iMac computers are the best for the film classes, but this is almost $600,000. How many schools is it going to be put in?
Thank you, Commissioner. We actually have 9 high schools that have this program. And what we try to do is keep them updated with the current industry standards so that they can be prepared when they get out. One of the reasons we lease, and we do this on a 4-year lease, is because traditionally they do change out a little quicker than the life of those devices as the technology improves.
How
you,
many
Mr. Golden.
students does this affect? I mean, how many students in each class in high school?
Well, I'm going to ballpark it. So the way those and I'm going to think out loud. The way those programs are structured, the TV teacher has a class every class period, and they teach first, second, third, and fourth year students. I will say the fourth year students probably are a little bit less on a daily basis. So I've actually helped out in those classes a few times, teaching them about some particular items. So I'm going to do 9 times. Probably, it's probably in the range of 800 students total from grade level to grade level. They're required to take 2 years of an area of concentration minimum, but a lot of them take that 3rd and 4th year.
All right, thank you, Jason.
Anyone else have any questions on resolution 720-17?
Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman, if
Mr.
I
Golden.
may.
Go ahead, Mr. Morton. Commissioner Morton. Go ahead.
At the very end, it looks like maybe we could cut and paste Chromebook in. I don't know if that needs to be changed. I don't think it's substantive, but.
That's a good point. Mr. Golden, do you see that the very last line says Chromebook computers? Is that
Yes,
part
you're
of the
right.
release?
Thank you, Commissioner. That is a typo. That should be those iMacs.
So it changed that word Chromebook to iMac. I think, Counselor, that would be considered a typo and we can fix without making an amendment. Would that be correct? Okay, maybe not. Can't hear you, Jeff. Push your mute button. There we go.
I think that's relatively substantive to change the break.
Okay.
So I think you do need to amend it.
All right.
I think it's in the title. I think it's in the title that they're Apple computers, and I
They
had
are.
a corrected one, so I don't understand why that one got filed.
That's fine. We have it here, the official one. So a counselor says we need to amend to take out in the last sentence Chromebook and replace with iMac. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, I'm going to say unanimous consent on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to change Chromebook to iMac signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the amendment is approved. We'll go back to the main resolution as amended, 720-17. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, ready to vote. Voting on resolution 720-17 as amended. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye, and resolution 720-17 as amended passes unanimously. The next one, 720-18, is subject to being voted on by unanimous consent. So resolution 720-18, resolution appropriating amending the 2020-2021 Register of Deeds budget by $151,000, revenues to come from document recording fees. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve by unanimous consent.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of 720-18, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. 720-18 passes unanimously. Resolution 720-19 also is subject to being approved by unanimous consent. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 county clerk's budget by $10,076, revenues to come from reserve account. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Sturgeon, second.
Okay. This will be a roll call vote. So are there any questions on this resolution for $10,076? Ready to vote? All those in favor of 720-19 signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. That resolution 720-19 passes unanimously. Resolution 720-20 is also subject to being approved by unanimous consent. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 circuit court clerk's budget by $50,000, revenues to come from the reserve account. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Have a second.
Morton, second.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this one? All right, ready to vote on 720-20? All those in favor signify by saying aye on resolution 720-20. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-20 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-21, also is subject to a unanimous consent vote. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-2021 clerk and master chancery court budget by $15,000, revenues to come from the reserve account. I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve with unanimous consent.
Thank you. Second.
Morton, second.
Thank you. Any questions on this resolution? All those in favor of resolution 720-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 720-21 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-22, resolution appropriating and amending the there's a typo there, 2020-2021 juvenile court budget by $192,000. Revenues come from state grant funds and authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to sign a grant contract amendment with the State of Tennessee Department of Children's Services. I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Be unanimous consent.
No, this is not unanimous consent.
Okay, just motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. I think on this one, the title, we can change that to 2020. That is a typo. The body rec shows it's 2020, 2021. Unless counselor tells me we need an amendment.
No, you're good with the typo there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on 720-22? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of resolution 720-22 signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-22 passes unanimously. Resolution 720-22, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to sign the Parent Education Mediation Fund Grant Contract with the State of Tennessee Administrative Office of the Courts and amending the 2020-2021 Juvenile Services budget by $1,000. Revenues come from state grant funds. So I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, I'm ready to vote on resolution 720-23. If you're in favor of resolution 720-23, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-23 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-24, resolution appropriating and amending the 2020-21 general sessions budget by $50,000 for Williamson County's participation in the electronic monitoring indigency fund, revenue to come from unappropriated county general funds. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Horton second.
Second. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this particular line item?
Yeah, Chairman,
Go ahead.
can I,
Yes,
I
go ahead,
just-
Mr. Sturgeon.
what is this? Electronic Monitoring Indigency Fund? what is
This
this?
is-
for?
I'm going to ask either the mayor or Nina to answer that one.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead,
Yes.
you know, if you want to.
Okay.
You can take a stab at it.
Mayor Nina has passed to you.
No,
He's thinking, Nina.
No,
There
go
you
ahead. Go ahead, Nina.
this goes to the general sessions courts. These are for the electronic monitoring devices for DUI cases. It's a program that runs through the state, but each county can opt in to participate in the program. And this is just our portion for the upcoming year. We did start this last year. I just failed to put it in with the budget process at the time that we were going through, or it would have just been within their regular budget.
And Commissioner, this is Jeff.
Yes.
This used to be 100% state funded, and then they changed it to where the local government had to contribute. I believe that's the program we're talking about. And so last year we had to fund a portion of it. These are the monitors that are used by the court to keep track of offenders as they're going through their probationary status to make sure that they're not drinking.
That is correct, Commissioner. Also, down in about the fifth, sixth whereas, you'll see the state really got out of the business, and then they backdoored and said, we'll match up to $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Otherwise, you can take it on yourself and to do it by yourself. It's just another way that the state defunded a particular program, and the counties were expected to pick it up, and it made it sound good at 50% rather than nothing.
I understand. Anyone else have any questions?
Well,
Yes.
do we have any feedback from the sheriff's office? Probably we do. I mean, they must think this is a very successful program, or the justice system, maybe the court system is the one that this is the umbrella that this is under?
It's under the court system. Jeff, you want to go ahead?
It's under the general sessions judges, and they absolutely favor having this tool as opposed to longer incarceration, to be able to put them back in their house with a monitor, make sure they're not drinking. So it's just an additional tool for the courts, and the general sessions courts have found it very successful.
All right. Can I ask one more question, please?
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Sturgeon.
Is this to make sure they're not drinking or not driving? Which one?
I'm pretty sure this is the not drinking monitor.
It's drinking.
Okay, thank you.
We've got several programs. They put those little ankle bracelets on and monitor them, and they're all got a little bit of different name. But the bottom line is it allows them nonviolence to get out and get back home with some monitoring rather than us paying the full freight of the cost of being in jail or incarceration.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, everyone. Anyone else have a question on 720-24? Ready to vote on resolution 720-24. If you're in favor, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Horton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-24 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-25. This may be put on floor by unanimous consent. Resolution amending the 2020-2021 Ag Exco Park budget by $1,918. Revenues come from donations. So I have a motion for approval.
Herbert, motion to approve by unanimous consent.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Horton, second.
Thank you. Any questions on 720-25? Ready to vote? All those in favor of resolution 720-25 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 720-25 passes unanimously. Resolution 720-26, a resolution amending the 2020-2021 Community Development Department budget and appropriating up to $250,000 for the creation of a regional growth management plan. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Horton, second.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could you
Go
get
ahead.
Christie's on the line for this one?
All right, Christie, you want to explain that to us?
Well, I will, but I believe Mike's on, so he might be
Okay.
more appropriate for that. Mike, are you on here? Mike Madison?
I am on here. I'd be happy to if you'd like for me to.
Go ahead, Mike. We appreciate it.
Okay, you bet. So I know you're all extremely familiar with the comprehensive plan, which was, of course, recently adopted just in March of this year. And so you know that the main theme of the plan is to preserve rural character in the outlying areas by focusing the majority of growth in and around the cities. Really, we're talking about the urban growth boundaries. And so the key recommendation, of course, is to reduce allowable residential densities in a lot of the unincorporated county from 1 to 1 to 1 to 5. And we're in the process of working through that. I sent a memo recently describing the process that we're utilizing for that. But a second major recommendation of the plan is to work with the various municipalities within the county on a regional growth management plan, essentially to help ensure that the UGBs function as intended. And so these funds would be used for that process, where we will hire a consultant to help plan and execute that process.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone have any questions of Mike? It's $250,000 to consulting firm McBride, Dale, Clarion. Any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor of resolution 720-26 will signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Horton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-26 passes unanimously. Thank you, Mike and Christie. Next up is resolution 720-27, resolution to establish a task force for the purpose of evaluating revision of the official Williamson County seal. Do I have a motion for approval?
Horton, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second this one to get it on the floor. Let me note, and I think everyone's got this, there is an amendment to this. And so first, before we go with amendments, anyone have any questions on this task force? We'll ask the questions on this, then we'll go to the amendment. Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, could I
Yes.
explain why we did what we did?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So at the last, one of the last meetings, within the last month, the question came up about the Confederate flag that was positioned on the seal that we used, that was created in 1968. And so many folks wrote in, called, text in, and had their opinions about the Confederate flag in the quadrum. There's 4 quadrums on our seal. The upper left quadrant is Confederate flag draped over the cannon. Underneath that's another one, and to the far right's 2 more. So the conversation has focused its full attention on the Confederate flag to this point. So being where you all are at one time, I figured it would make its way to the county commission floor in either July or September. And so this was an attempt by this office, working with legal staff. As you can see, I did request it to help find a way that you all could make, I pronounce quadrant, excuse me, help find a way that you all could come to a decision. Legal counsel has definitely told us the ultimate decision on what to do with the seal for your vote to go to the Tennessee Historical Commission in Nashville has to have your approval. And then their approval has to coincide by a 2/3 vote. So working with legal counsel again and some others, we created a nine-member task force to address the issues that are outlined in for the official seal. And you have a copy of that. If you all pass the resolution and David has got an amendment, as you've indicated, if you pass them, then we will be finding people either to serve as a representative or that particular firm, such as one, the county historian, that's only one person, it's Rick Warwick. Some of the others, you get a representative from the CBB and et cetera, with the thought process that this will land itself over to chamber so they could set these meetings up. They could run the meetings. They could get a facilitator to help come back in a certain period of time by the September meeting with the data and the facts that they have been able to accumulate, which ultimately you're going to have to vote on. So the task force is nothing more of 9 organizations built in our county that they can gather this information rather than it being played out on the county commission floor, which is oftentimes very emotional. That was the process, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does anyone have any questions of the mayor on the resolution before we review the amendment? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Sturgeon.
Thank you, Chairman. How was the makeup of the committee decided? Who decided who would be on the committee? We haven't even voted on it yet, but I think there's people already assigned to be on this committee.
Well, I'm not sure where you've heard that, Commissioner. The only one that I know for sure is going to be on here is Rick Warwick, who is our county historian. I mean, that's the one. Now, I will be honest with you. We've reached out to several people in our community and asked if they were interested in maybe serving in one of these particular areas that are listed here, but no one has been given the green light that they'll be on the committee. I'm not sure where you heard that information.
Yeah, I just heard some of my constituents said they read an article in the paper that was talking about the makeup of the committee. I actually didn't read the article myself.
Well, I can assure you the only one for sure is the county, and the others are in the individual groups. And I have started getting a list together because if you all approve this, then we have to go forward with it. And I didn't want to be totally left in the dark trying to pull this together.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner Herbert.
Yes.
I've received emails also from people complaining about the Bible being on this. Is that going to be included on this committee's decision?
If you look at it, it's the whole seal, but we have an amendment here that's been proposed that might address your question.
Okay.
Unamended, it's the entire seal. Any other questions? All right. Well, we can come back to this, but I have the amendment. As you see, we have an amendment proposed from that is to change this to limit it to just the quadrant with the flag and the seal. I think everyone on the committee has that.
Mr. Chairman, could I correct you?
Yes.
It's the flag on the cannon.
Okay.
And I think David Landrum would like to specifically address that if you would allow him to speak.
I think we need to get it on the floor first, then I was going to go to David to explain. So we have an amendment to the resolution regarding that. If you have it in front of you, I don't have a title. That's what I was looking for. Just calls amendment to resolution 720-27, but if you'll see, it's to limit the task force to that one quadrant. So do I have a motion to approve the amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll make the amendment from my position here.
Okay.
So we can get it up if we can get a second.
Okay, do we have a second? I saw Commissioner Morton's mouth move, but I didn't hear him. He's on mute.
I was muted. I apologize. Morton second.
Thank you. Very good. All right. I would like Commissioner Landrum, if you will, this is your amendment. Could you speak to this, please?
Be glad to. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Great. Well, thank you. I do appreciate the task force, and if it is finalized, we have a task force. I think it's important that we give the task force a specific role, and that is to study the quadrant that has the cannon and the flag. And if you'll read the amendment, that's exactly what it states. Kind of keep them resolved in that. So we don't go to the other three quadrants and try to redesign the entire seal. And I think it's important, and I'm passionate about this. I think it's very important that we keep the integrity of the seal as is. People that drew it up, all well-meaning, but I think that one quadrant needs to be what's examined here, and that's what actually has to go to the commission. That's the only thing that's historical in it. And the others, we can make personal changes if we ever think the need to. So I really support this amendment and brought it forward to go with the task force if the task force is approved. And I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Landrum. Anyone have any questions of Commissioner Landrum on the amendment? Any questions? I heard someone. Okay. Commissioner Landrum, I will be, I'm going to oppose the amendment, but my opposition is not because of what you're trying to do. I've checked with the county attorney, and we are not required by county statutes or state statutes to have a seal. So my recommendation to the task force is approved is to do away with the seal and eliminate some of the controversy. And so I understand what you're doing, but my opposition to your amendment will just be because I'm opposed to the seal entirely. So I want to see us eliminate this bone of contention. And so I'll vote against the amendment, but I do understand what you're trying to do to address this particular quadrant. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, we have the amendment before us as you see it. And since it does have, remember, this is an amendment to the resolution 720-27. We'll be voting on the amendment. If you're in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, no.
Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, no.
Mayor Anderson?
Anderson votes aye.
Commissioner Webb votes no. So the mission fails 3-2. Just for note, Counselor, this could be brought back at the full commission meeting. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I had it unmuted and I muted myself, but yes, the amendment can be brought on the floor of the commission. This does not prevent that.
That's what I thought. Thank you very much. Commissioner Landrum, thank you very much for bringing this amendment.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Very quickly. I know everybody's busy, but I'm really passionate about the seal and the integrity of the seal. And that's why I brought this forward, just to address the one quadrant that has the controversy. And I think it's important in this community that we do this. I appreciate everybody's vote and understand it, but I do hope, and thank you, Mr. Mosley, that I have a way to bring it back up at the full commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Landrum. All right, now we're back to the resolution 720-27. Are any more questions? All right, are we ready to vote? Resolution 7-20-27. If you're in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, no.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, no.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye. So the resolution 720-27 passes 3-2. Thank you very much. Next one up is resolution 720-28, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute an interlocal agreement with the City of Franklin for the joint cost and sewer infrastructure for the new animal center. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Second. All right, we've talked about this. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing on this item? All right, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of resolution 720-28 signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sturgeon.
Mayor Anderson? Yes, Mayor Anderson?
Anderson votes aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-28 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-29, which may be approved by unanimous consent. Resolution authorizing the Williams County Mayor to sign a contract with State of Tennessee Department of Children's Services for the provision of juvenile detention services. Do I have a motion?
Herbert, motion to approve by unanimous consent.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? This looks pretty self-explanatory. Any questions? Seeing none, ready to vote on resolution 720-29? If in favor, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. 720-29 passes unanimously. Next one up is resolution 720-30, resolution revising certain personnel policies as required by mandate of the United States Supreme Court. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve by Herbert.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Second. All right. Mayor, do you want to address this or have HR? Anybody has any questions?
How about if we let Jeff or Lisa address this? This is
Okay.
Jeff.
Jeff Mosley? Did we lose him?
There, my computer buttons are slow on the mute and unmute. Earlier this year, there was a Supreme Court decision that expanded the definition under the 1964 employment law that included gender identification and sexual orientation. We really don't have much choice on it. The risk management and litigators tell us that this actually adds to our protection to have it in the policies. Obviously, we have to follow it anyway. So having the policies in place would help us against claims either from the administrative or the court systems.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Ready to vote on resolution 720-30? All those in favor of 720-30 signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Aye. Anderson,
Thank-
aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 720-30 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-31, a resolution to reduce the speed limit along Will Hoyt Road in Williamson County. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. This reduced the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Commissioner Herbert. Did the highway board approve this also?
The mayor's shaking his head, yes.
Commissioner, yes, we took that up last week.
Okay, by unanimous consent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, ready to vote on 720-31. If you're in favor, please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Resolution 7-20-31 passes unanimously. Next up is resolution 720-32, resolution authorizing the Williams County Mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding for the distribution and accounting of grant funds in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Do I have a motion for approval?
Herbert, motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Thank you. I think, is this you, Mayor, or Bill Jorgensen to address this issue?
Well, actually, it's grant funds coming in and you're from because of the COVID, and we'll distribute it to the different ones you see there, the fire rescue, Arrington, Nolansville, and the rescue squad for the purchase of equipment. Just a grant. It's a grant.
All right. Anyone have any questions? All right, are you ready to vote on resolution 720-32? If so, signify by saying aye if you're in favor. Did I hear somebody have a question?
I just
No.
wanted to double check with Nina. Did this not need an appropriation line item, Nina?
No, I think it's actually going to be accounted for through the fire services foundation. Is that right, Bill?
The intent would be to match the grant with county funds through existing funding.
No new funds are needed then, Bill? It's already in your budget?
We would move, we would take it out of the COVID line or the fire equipment line to match those funds.
Okay, no new appropriation is needed. You're going to utilize existing money.
Yes, ma'am. That's the way I understand it.
Thank you. Sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
That's fine. Are we all clear? Anybody else have any other questions? Ready to vote on resolution 720-32? If in favor, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Herbert?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. That passes unanimously. Resolution 720-32. That's all we have. On my agenda, I have a mayor's update. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to update us on today?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
It's Diane again. You all should have received a late filed resolution late this afternoon from the attorney's office regarding resolution Commissioner Lathers has requested authorizing the mayor to enter into or sign a license agreement. It came straight from the attorney's office to each of you.
Just a second. I'm looking to see if I have one. I do not have that.
I'm happy to read it to you if you would like.
Hi, Diane, this is Paul. Yeah, this is coming from about Nolensville, but I just now noticed that there are 2 spelling typos in the title.
Commissioner Little, if you know about the resolution, do you want to speak to it? I will forward this email to all of the members of the committee again real quick.
Yeah, I can sort of explain it before they get it, but what it is that there is a group in Nolensville who are wanting to put a mural celebration of the women's right to vote 19th Amendment, and it's from the Women's Project Group. They have raised the money to pay for it. They have been working with Gordon with Parks and Rec, and they would like to put it on the side of the Parks and Rec building. It's a nice flowery mural that'll be right next to the walking trail, is my understanding. So all of the powers that be in Nolensville are in favor of it. It's not in the historic district, so it doesn't affect historic zoning there. But so that's what this is. It just came to us today. This group has raised all of the funds to pay for the mural. And so it's just a matter of getting it, the signatures to getting it approved.
All right, I've received mine. Thank you, Commissioner Little. We'll give a minute for all the other commissioners. This would be 720-33, correct, Diane?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner Little, this is Commissioner Herbert. I thought I read where the city of Nolensville wouldn't approve this. Is that correct?
They were not, what they were talking about is what came before them were murals in the historic district. This is not in the historic district. The city manager, the city mayor, and some others, I'd have to look through all the emails. They have approved this because of its location. They disapproved an ordinance because it was going to allow murals in the historic district, and they voted that down at one of their meetings. But that was because it was going to be in the historic district.
Thank you, Commissioner Little. I don't think Commissioner Lathers is on here, but I think she's been heavily involved in that one. So if reading this, this would be on the Nolensville Parks and Recreation Bill. Is that right, Commissioner Little?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions? This would be late filed resolution 720-33.
This is Commissioner Herbert again.
Go ahead.
Could we be sent something of what it's gonna look like? I mean, I'm just a little leery with it being on a county building. And it's already been disapproved by one organization.
Now, this mural has not been disapproved. Is my understanding. This, what was disapproved was their ordinance to allow murals on the historic district. They were two separate things. At least that was my understanding. And I'm trying to see if I've got a copy of it in my email. I'm not able to lay my hands on it right now.
I believe, Commissioner Little, that was in one of the electronic feeds from the Williamson Herald.
And I think this resolution is just permission for the mayor to enter into it and calls for them providing the final drawings and for our approval prior to it going up. Prior to the county's approval, I would think that would probably be through the rec department. So we have not seen that, but they don't, to my understanding, have that mural yet for us to approve, if I'm reading the resolution correctly.
That sounds correct. Commissioner Little, anything to add to that?
Not at this time.
Okay, any other questions?
Except for the spelling typos. 19th is misspelled and Constitution is misspelled.
Okay, we can fix that. Those are just typos, not requiring an amendment. Commissioner Herbert, did you have another question?
No.
Okay.
I believe it would need to go back through the property committee once we get the information from whatever that group is.
All right,
Tommy,
that
can you
sounds
tell me what
reasonable.
that group is? It's not spelled out. It just says it's a nonprofit. I'm not sure what that stands for.
Give me just a second.
Jeff, do you?
Because I've talked.
I do not.
I'm trying to look at, because I've had text messages on this and emails, so I'm trying to figure out which one I've got on what. So
I am not familiar with who DMA Events is, Diane, so I can't speak to that.
And Bobby or Commissioner Lathers, neither one is on the call, I don't guess.
Correct.
So this is let's see, I've got the Williamson Herald article up. This is DMA Events, a nonprofit organization that brings public art to communities in Tennessee. And they were set to partner with the Painted Dragonfly, which was the historic business that was disapproved by the Nolensville Historic Commission. The intent was to promote public art in honor of the 100th year of women's suffrage in Tennessee. So if that might help you a little bit, Commissioner Herbert. That's in the Williamson Herald of online, I think this morning or yesterday. I'm not a fan of the picture either, but that's Nolensville's thing, not mine.
Okay.
I know Gordon's been involved with this and with the negotiations on it. So.
Okay. Any more questions on this late file resolution 720-33?
I have one quick question.
Okay.
Will we get a chance to approve the artwork? Because I don't want to approve something that might be crazy, you know? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I'm hoping somebody can answer that.
Well, as I stated, Commissioner, and I'm trying to count, fifth whereas says once the site is agreed upon, DMA will provide Williamson County a final design to approve as the facility owner prior to any work being conducted.
Okay, so is Williamson County the commission?
Well, it hadn't been specified here, and I think that if you want the commission to look at it, as Diane said, I think it would probably come back through the property. But if you direct Gordon that you want this to come back through the commission for approval of the project, I think he would certainly take that guidance, or you could amend the resolution to require it. Either way.
Oh, I make a motion that we require that.
Okay, I need to come back just for a moment. Jamie, can you tell me, did we ever get the motion to get this on the floor because we didn't have a number? I don't know that we got a motion to put it on the floor that we've been discussing. Can you tell me?
Jamie cannot speak, but there is no motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Jamie can't talk. All right, so let's go. We have the motion regarding artwork and on the Knollsville Recreation Center, Resolution 7-20-33 late file. Do I have a motion for approval? From the Budget Committee.
Motion to approve, Sturgeon.
Thank you. Do I have a second? The chair will second to get this discussion. All right, we've had our discussion. Commissioner Sturgeon, you were proposing an amendment?
Yeah, I would like for the county commission to have approval over the final design.
Mr. Chairman, this is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, you've got a motion. I'll wait till you're finished. If you get a
All
second.
right. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second for the motion?
No.
I have a second to the amendment. I'm sorry, my tongue is dry.
I'll second the amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Herbert. So on the amendment, do we have any further discussion? This is the amendment to have the county commission approve any artwork that goes on the rec center in Knollsville.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Rogers, because it's late filed, you all have a lot of questions. We'll probably have those same type of discussions and question at the county commission for. Could you not ask our commission chairman, Mr. Little or Beth to, and it's a late file, so it just takes two people to object, and it looks like you're going to get that. Could you not have them get all this data, the artwork, the design work, and rather than trying to run it through on a particular long day that you all are going to have, and resubmit that and see if we couldn't get it go through the property committee, and unless it's really time sensitive, I would think Mr. Little or Beth could do that, and you wouldn't have to get caught in this quandary. We have no time left to have a property meeting before the meeting. And so that means you're going to have the county commissioners bat it around back and forth, if that's what you all are trying to vote on.
I agree that we have the amendment on the floor. So I'll ask Commissioner Sturgeon, would you consider withdrawing your amendment if Commissioner Little will take the mayor's advice and bring that back to the September meeting?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Commissioner Herbert, will you agree as a second on that amendment?
Yes.
All right, now we'll go back. Commissioner Little, you heard the discussion. I agree with that. Would you withdraw the late file resolution and bring that back in September when we have more information?
Well, it has not been filed, and it's not been signed, and it's not been filed. So it's not a problem on my end. I will have to get with Beth. She is the one that wanted to do it as a late file, and I just agreed because she's done the legwork on it. I will have to find out, is there a particular reason why we needed to see it in July, or was it just that she wanted to get it done? So let me check with her, and I will have to get back to the office in the morning or this afternoon, late evening.
Thank you, Chair Little. Understand there are lots of questions, and this comes up with a late file. And we had lots of questions, and it might be better to bring it back in September when you have all of the answers for the commission and the budget committee, as well as the property committee. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Little. Now then, if there's not any other resolution before us, I was going to go to see if the mayor had any updates.
Well, there is a few updates. Earlier today, after a long weekend, I want to thank Diane and Lisa and Jeff. The governor came out with his executive order to allow 89 counties in the state to look at face masks if you so desired, but an executive order by the mayor. We spent the biggest part of the weekend on the 4th and the 5th of talking to our city mayors, city managers, legal team, and the consensus was that all the mayors felt compelled to put a mandate together, of which Lisa and Jeff have issued. So that was issued earlier today about 10 o'clock. You probably have heard it, seen it, or read about it. To go into effect for Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 11:59 up until August the 3rd. I would encourage you to go to the Williamson County website and read the order, and particularly the areas that it does not pertain to. There's 13 of them, and how this has been developed. We didn't create all the rules. These came down through executive orders or through CDC guidelines. And so now we're trying to educate the public and communicate with the public that wearing a mask is a good practice from a public health standpoint. Now, some people have written in and said there's no validity to that. Others have said, thank you. We've had over the weekend a couple of hundred emails saying, please do it. We made the order today. We've had several people to say we're idiots. And, you're kind of, I'm used to being ahead of the parade. So this was a call that was made. The bigger issue that we have to look at as well as public health, and I should say today from our 8:30 to 12:30 testing site at the Ag Center, we did over 1,000 tests today, and we had to leave the center open, single largest day we've ever done. So people are truly coming out to the Ag Center, maybe not with symptoms. They should be coming out there with symptoms, but people want to know, and they're very concerned about their health. I'm hoping by the presence of these masks and the mandate we're going to have for nearly 30 days is that it will at least reduce the curve or hold the curve steady, any kind of terminologies you want, so that we can look to our education partners, Franklin Special School District and our Williamson County school system, and get these schools open. They have some metrics they're looking at in order to open schools and keep schools open. Part of the things that we have to do, and the role I play, is to aid them, support them, because I think it's imperative we get schools open. Children learn best, particularly in the elementary and the middle school, with a teacher, not as a mom, not as a dad. My own daughter, I've said this 2 or 3 times today, my own daughter is a nurse practitioner, very capable, but she got fired by her own son because she didn't know how to teach her son math the way that he was being taught at Grassley. And I get that. At the end of the day, somewhat controversial for those that don't want to wear masks. That's their choice. It's a misdemeanor, Class A, but we're not going out with a big stick. We've asked Dusty. We're talking to our other city law enforcement. Let's educate. Let's promote. And the big stick of writing citations is a last resort. So it's been mixed bag today. It'll probably be a mixed bag tomorrow. But at the end of the day, I think it's important that we keep our community healthy and get our schools back, at least having the opportunity to open back up in August. That would be my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any other business before the Budget Committee today?
Yeah, Paul, can I ask a question of the mayor?
Go ahead.
Hey, Mayor, can you tell us how the hospital, how Williamson Medical Center is doing? Is it overwhelmed with COVID patients?
So good question, Commissioner. If you don't mind, because Jeff was on there and I had to cut away, we've been having daily conversations, and Jeff was on the conversation with the hospital. To the best of my recollection, the numbers are going up a little, but we still have capacity. Jeff?
Yeah, the number of confirmed cases coming through the hospital through the ED is going up. The large majority of those are still being treated and sent home for isolation. There are a few that are being hospitalized. That number has gone up. The ICU census is remaining pretty steady. We have some come in, we have some go out. We have had, I believe she said 2 die over the last week. But the number of ICU cases has remained 3 or 4 pretty consistently. So they've got a lot of capability. They are converting some space to make it just a COVID ICU unit, but they're not stressing their capacity at this point. They are gearing up in case that occurs as the cases continue to climb.
When you say going up from what? I mean, going up from single digits, double digits? How many people are we talking about are in that hospital with COVID?
I don't have a number of that are going up that are in the hospital for COVID. And it's a little difficult because not everybody who has COVID in the hospital actually went into the hospital for COVID. Some of them went in for another reason, and it was only found that they had COVID because they were preparing to get a surgery or for some other reason they were tested while there for some other condition. So if they don't need to be hospitalized, even if they're positive for COVID, they are sent home to isolate. They have to meet the requirements for admission to actually be admitted. So they have to have some kind of respiratory or other issue that requires admission before they can be admitted. So they won't go in just for COVID unless they meet the criteria for admission. So the ICU is the bigger concern, and they've still got capacity there. They've only got on average 3 or 4 patients that are in ICU with COVID.
Would it be possible to have someone from the hospital make a report at their next meeting so we can at least understand what % capacity the hospital's at?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will reach out to the chief operating officer and the CEO for them to be on our call next Monday so they can kind of give a snapshot of everything that's going on out there. I think that would be a good request.
Yeah, I think the chief medical officer is planning on it, but we'll verify that, Commissioner.
Okay, and I'm trying to understand why this wearing masks is connected with schools opening up in the fall. Are you saying that children are going to be required to wear masks at school?
No, ma'am. In no way am I indicating that. In fact, the executive order specifically says that children 12 and under do not have to wear a mask. I am saying that when you have the mask on, if you're asymptomatic or if you've got the virus, we lost, I think it was 3 or 4 employees over the weekend to the virus here where we work. And so you could have the virus and be transmitting it with a mask, at least it's contained within your own self. Now, when you come into the office here, or you come to the facility or any of our facilities, you have to answer 4 questions in the affirmative, and you have to have your temperature checked, and we are giving masks so that if you come in with the virus, at least the theory is you're not going to be spreading it by talking or saliva, sneezing, coughing to other people. It has nothing to do with the kids going to school. It is helping to prevent the COVID-19 virus from spreading to other people. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess it makes sense if you actually believe that those masks can prevent COVID from going through them, but everything I've read says that they cannot prevent COVID from going through them. So maybe it's just a psychological thing.
Well, you're entitled to opinion. I don't concur with your assessment, or I wouldn't have issued the order, but there are people that concur with your assessment. And
well, do you have any studies that show that masks work at this?
I have health people that say that it helps to prevent the spread.
Okay, let me thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're off topic of the budget committee at this point. I appreciate that. Perhaps you and Commissioner Sturgeon could continue that discussion. We're about to run into our limit that Jamie has us scheduled for the budget committee.
Can I get back to you on this other filed resolution?
Right, we're going to run out of time, Chair Little. So tell us. Go ahead.
All right. Beth was trying to call in. There is a time crunch on this. It has to be done this month, or I don't understand why. Beth, did you ever get on? She was trying to call in, but she said she can answer some questions, but she does have there is a time crunch that we need to hear it at the July meeting.
Okay, I hear Commissioner Lathers.
There she is.
All right,
Sorry, I've been trying and trying.
all right.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
This is unique. Jeff, weigh in here. We've taken this off the agenda, but I do want to hear the reason for having this late file resolution brought so suddenly, Commissioner Lathers.
Well, what happened was in the town of Nolensville, there was a historic district location for this tourism venture, which is called Walls for Women. There's about 12 statewide murals in different places. And so it wasn't the right location for a historic district deemed by the town of Nolensville Historic Zoning Commission because it was on an actual historic building. And so folks were asking about maybe different locations. Kristen Luna, who is a travel blogger, recommended looking at locations that are greenway trails. And Debbie Brown from Nolensville and other constituents were requesting maybe in the park system. And so there was conversations with Gordon Hampton, with the Parks and Rec director of the Nolensville Recreation Center, with the Historic Zoning Commission chairman, and we spoke with Mayor Alexander, and everybody is positive about this mural happening for tourism on the Greenway, along the trail across from the new playground, that it was a win-win for the community to have a Walls for Women mural on the outbuilding. Those visuals were sent to Gordon. Gordon agreed, and he sent it to Jeff to look at the contract. The only reason why we're getting this a little bit later in the process is it originated in a town of Nolensville process, but everyone's agreed that this is a really good compromise. The community has raised $10,000. There's no cost to the county, and it's just paint on the side of a wall to brighten up a floral design in a nature setting and also be a tourist. Ellie Westman Chin, the CEO of the CVB, has been very supportive of this. So we just followed the breadcrumbs, and because there's a technical contract involved, even though there's no cost to the county, that's where it ended up needing to be a late filed resolution.
Commissioner Lathers, the discussions here was we felt it should go to property committee, and then Commissioner Sturgeon had an amendment that did have a second for the county commission to approve the artwork. Now, before we bring this back up, can all that be completed by next Monday? I don't think we can have a property committee meeting. I know we can't have a property committee meeting. I've already heard that explanation. So,
well, I guess if there's a problems with the artwork, I thought that was administrative in nature with the Parks and Rec director and the Recreation Center director. There is actually a mural, a Girl Scout mural currently on one of our recreation buildings that I don't believe came before the county commission at all. So I'm not sure why we have a different policy on this versus that.
okay. In the interest of time, thank you. If you'll stay on the line, Commissioner Lathers, in case there's questions come up, I'll go back to Chair Little. Chair Little, 720-33 is the number I've given that late filed resolution, just so we have a reference point. I'm willing to ask if there's a motion for that concern with what we've heard from Commissioner Lathers, and see if we can get a second and start this over. Do you have anything else to add, Commissioner Little?
No, sir, not this time.
All right, the Budget Committee Chair calls for approval of the motion for 720-33 regarding the artwork at the Nolensville Recreation Center. Is there a motion for approval on this late file resolution? I'm not hearing the morsel here, so that's, unless there's somebody just coming on, that is going to fail for lack of a motion. So Commissioner Little, Commissioner Lathers, we may revisit this later, but this was failed on Budget Committee for failure to get a motion on the floor. So thank
May
you,
I ask
Commissioner
you
Lathers,
why-
for,
Yeah,
Pardon?
can I ask, Mr. Chairman, why there's a reason why there's not an interest in having it being heard?
well, at this point, we've had a large discussion about it, and so I can't get a motion for it on the floor at this point. So you might want to consider bringing it to the full commission and see what kind of reaction you get. That's always an option.
How could I do that, Mr. Webb?
Jeff is, counselor's online, so maybe he can guide you real quick.
We can still file the late file I'm not Jeff, but we can still file the late file resolution. If there are 2 objections, it will not be heard. If there are no objections, it will be heard.
There we go, Commissioner Lathers. You still have an option.
Well, I think that we need to continue to do that, Tommy, or you and I will both have the, unfortunately, a lot of upset people in the town of Nolensville that it's not even being heard.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lathers. Budget Committee, is there any other business for action today on the Budget Committee items?
This is Commissioner Herbert. I have
Yes.
a bad question for Mayor Anderson. I
Okay,
guess my concern that the schools may not open in August or later. Is there any discussion about if any county employees will be furloughed? Since there won't be anybody, if there's not anyone in the building, is there any kind of plan about that?
Well, at this particular time, Commissioner, to answer that question, I can't. We are making every effort from the county level to stay open and keep our facilities running, except we lay off some part-time helpers early on. I think there was about 400 of them, but they were all part-time. The schools will have to make that decision in regard to their personnel. And I think that was where you were addressing the question. The other issue is the school board and Jason Golden are making every effort to open up our schools in August, but it's on a metric number, so many sickness, so many COVID cases, et cetera, et cetera. They've done that pretty much without the guidance of the State Department of Education. Most of the superintendents have gotten together and tried to figure out a metric because they're all trying to get these schools open.
thank you. Commissioner Herbert, follow up? All right, thank you. Any
Okay.
other business? Is that it, Commissioner Herbert?
Yes, my husband
Okay.
was screaming in the background. I was trying to fight.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. We adjourned at 6:12.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.